Welcome to Istanbul. This city, where two continents meet, houses one of the largest airports in the world, handling 80 million passengers a year. To have that sort of capacity, Istanbul has some complex procedures that require some studying beforehand to find your way around here. This pilot briefing is intended to guide you through flying in and out of Istanbul on VATSIM. We will cover everything from flight planning to getting airborne and planning your descent to touching down. Per the VATSIM Code of Conduct Bravo 14, you are required to have up-to-date nav data and the charts, both of which you will absolutely require at Istanbul. Please have up-to-date charts at hand at all times. Furthermore, nearly all procedures have changed in April 2025. However, if you still decide to fly without these, let the controller know as soon as possible, preferably on initial contact. Our nav procedures are mandatory at Istanbul. Therefore, make sure your flight plans start at the waypoints where SIDs terminate. SIDs, the fixes Vijan and Ekave, replace ASMAP and OSMEV departures with IRAC 2504. If you have older nav data, advise ATC immediately. When filing a flight plan to or from an airport in Turkey, always prefer Eurocontrol IFPS compliant routes in SimBrief whenever possible, as these are verified to be correct provided you have the latest nav data cycle. If you don't have the latest nav data on SimBrief but do have it in your aircraft, you can scroll down on the SimBrief route selection menu to see the routes that were uploaded after the airspace changes. If this is the case, use these for flight planning. Istanbul has a huge terminal, and 5 of the piers are dedicated to international flights, while the Gulf Pier is domestic. On the western side of the terminal, expect 17 right or 35 left for departure. On the eastern side, plan for 18 or 36. Please keep in mind that this is always subject to ATC clearance. The cargo terminal is found on the western side of the airport. Please check the current departure ATIS information before requesting clearance. Be aware that departure and arrival ATISes are separate. We recommend all traffic to use PDC for clearance. You can check the logon code via the active controller's info line. Initial climb altitude is dependent on your departure runway and is also charted. Please make sure to turn your transponder on before requesting pushback. Operate mode Charlie on all taxiways, as otherwise the controllers will not be able to see you. Furthermore, only request pushback when you have all ground equipment disconnected, the tug ready to go, as soon as you receive your pushback clearance. It is important that you start pushing back as soon as possible. Some parking positions require unconventional pushbacks onto marked positions. You can check the pushback procedures beforehand to have an idea on what you can expect from ATC.
Turkish 6 Kilo Alpha, push on startup route, position 10, QNH 1017. Push on startup route on position 10, Turkish 6 Kilo Alpha. Turkish 218, pushback and startup is approved, face south on position 1, QNH 1008. Pushback and startup is approved, will face south on position 1, QNH 1008, Turkish 218.
As there is a huge amount of taxiways, controllers will use charted standard taxi routes to declutter the frequency and for ease of understanding. An example instruction by ATC, including these routes, may be
Turkish 2 Lima Oscar, taxi via Tango 5, then join departure to Bravo. Taxi Tango 5, then join departure to Bravo, Turkish 2 Lima Oscar.
After you receive such an instruction, you are expected to follow the taxiways given by ATC to join the taxi route depicted on the chart. Please be cautious to not turn into another taxiway and stop immediately if you are unsure. Never cross any runway without explicit ATC instruction. It's important that you have charts ready to follow these taxi routes. as runways at Istanbul provide a lot of takeoff run, you can expect an intersection departure for shorter taxi. Please advise on your initial request for taxi if you do require the full length of the runway. When departing from runway 17 right or 35 left, ATC will most likely give you taxi instructions to hold short runway 17 left or 35 right. This is not a mistake, and you can expect to cross the parallel runway to depart via 17 right or 35 left. Only types 747-8, A380 and larger should expect runway 17 left or 35 right for departure. Please be aware of this and do not line up on the wrong runway, as this may cause conflicts with traffic on the approach. When cleared for takeoff, you are expected to start your roll in less than 10 seconds. When airborne, contact the departure frequency in the 80s with your SID only, without waiting for the tower controller to hand you off.
Teşekkürler Turkish 2 Lima Oscar to Blue 1 Delta. Turkish 2 Lima Oscar, hello, Yeşilköy radar contact, climb flight level 240. Climb flight level 240.
Do not report that you are airborne or that you are switching frequencies to the tower controller unless otherwise instructed. If you're on radar vector departure, please report your assigned heading and altitude on your initial call as well. Do not breach your initially assigned altitude and follow the departure procedure as closely as possible, including any and all restrictions. It is important that you execute all turns immediately when departing from any runway for independent runway operation. Please keep this in mind. Finally, please do not request any directs or shortcuts from the controllers, as we are already trying to get you out as soon as possible. Now, let's go over the topic of arriving at Istanbul. As mentioned, RNAV procedures are mandatory. Plan your routes to terminate where the arrivals start for Istanbul. With IREC 2504, all arrival identifiers have changed from 2 to 1, with the procedures themselves staying exactly the same, while some new arrivals were also added. ATPIX arrivals are now replaced with NUGBA and CANCO arrivals. Again, as mentioned at the beginning, it is incredibly important that you have the latest nav data, and this is also stated in the VATSIM Code of Conduct. Nevertheless, please advise immediately if you have old nav data or cannot fly on arrival. Radar service is provided by Yeşilköy Approach or Ankara Control. Keep in mind that Istanbul has many possible arrivals and ATC will assign you one. This might be different from what SimBrief assigns you by default. Runway assignment can also change on a short notice. Please prepare for all approaches given in the arrival 80s. Follow the speed and altitude restrictions on the charts as closely as possible and advise ATC if you cannot meet the restriction. Keep in mind that flight computers tend to omit the restrictions of the first waypoint of the arrival, so please double check when planning your descent. The approach frequency may be busy and you are expected to be constantly listening to execute any kind of instruction as soon as possible. Please immediately comply to radar vectors, directs, or any other instruction to ensure separation. Please do not text any controller via private message and contact them only on the frequency. The arrival procedures will take you to waypoints Imren, Nupe, and Sadık for runways 34 left, 35 right, and 36, and to waypoints Insta, Ulkal, and Kazga for runways 16 right, 17 left, and 18. From these waypoints, there are approach transitions that will take you from the end of the arrival to the final approach. The approach controller will only clear you for the ILS procedure but may not mention the transition in the clearance. These transitions are always mandatory and you have to fly them in all cases, even if the controller has not specifically stated the transition in your approach clearance. You should check the charts to see where your arrival terminates to see which transition connects your arrival to the approach procedure.
Turkish 17 Echo, proceed direct Insta, and from Insta you're cleared ILS Zulu approach runway 17 left. Turkish 9 Mike Oscar, from Imran cleared ILS Yankee runway 35 right.
You are responsible for selecting the correct transition in your FMC. On Airbus MCDUs, make sure to select an approach via. While on a Boeing, you will have to select the corresponding transition. Please double check in your flight plan or legs page and confirm that the waypoints in your programmed flight plan line up with the transition you see on the chart. Approach clearance also clears you to descend via the profile to the platform altitude. Strictly follow the altitude and speed restrictions for all transitions, as this is vital for triple independent runway operations. If you have old nav data or cannot fly a transition, let the controller know as soon as possible. When you are cleared for the approach procedure, do not engage a localizer capture or approach mode immediately. Only capture the localizer after flying the entire transition to the final approach fix and when you're on the final approach course. In case of a go-round, you are expected to fly the standard missed approach procedure, climbing to the published altitude. Please check the missed approach procedure on the charts and fly it as accurately as possible. Different ILS approaches to the same runway do have different missed approach segments, so please select the correct approach. Advise ATC immediately if you decide to abort the approach. Especially during periods of high traffic, it is extremely important that you do not stop on the runway and vacate completely as soon as possible. Always use the rapid exit taxiways for minimum runway occupancy. Unless otherwise instructed by ATC, continue slowly on the taxiways shown here without waiting for any taxi instructions. When vacating runway 16 right or 34 left, cross the parallel runway and continue on taxiway Alpha without waiting for any crossing or taxi instruction unless otherwise instructed. When vacating 17 left or 35 right, continue on taxiway Charlie. When vacating runway 18, hold short of Golf. When vacating runway 36, continue left onto Golf without waiting. Again, do not wait for any instruction to continue on these taxiways. Cargo aircraft arriving on runway 17 left or 35 right may prefer to vacate by crossing the parallel runway for shorter taxi to the cargo apron. If you have such an intention, inform the tower controller as soon as possible. Unless otherwise instructed by ATC, you should always vacate 17 left or 35 right via taxiway Charlie. After vacating onto the taxiway, immediately contact the ground frequency if it is in the 80s. The tower controller may not hand you off to the ground controller. If ground is offline, continue taxiing slowly and let the controller know that you have vacated the runway. Remember that traffic vacating a runway always have priority. Unless otherwise instructed by ATC, give way to vacating traffic. Here again, we use standard taxi routes that you can find in your charts. Please follow the taxi routes depicted on the chart and only taxi off the route with ATC instruction.
Turkish 9 Mike Oscar, welcome. Taxi via arrival to Alpha. Tango 3, stand Bravo 8 left. Arrival to Alpha, Tango 3, then to stand Bravo 8 left. Turkish 9 Mike Oscar.
Again, stop and ask ATC if you're unsure of your taxi route. It's a good idea to brief the taxi routes that you may receive from ATC after arrival during your descent preparation. Again, please keep mode Charlie on when taxiing on any taxiway. With that, we come to the end of our pilot briefing. Turkish language voiceover and written PDF versions of this video are also available in the description. For any inquiries, you can contact us via a support ticket or by our Discord server. We hope this will be helpful to you, and we wish to see you flying in or out of Istanbul next time. Have a nice flight, and so long.